Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me. So I am, as she just said, I am AshLeigh Dunham, and I am running for the Alabama Supreme Court. And I know the very first thing that y'all are thinking is, man, she looks young. I know. Thank you. So actually, I turned 40 this year, but let me just tell you, I knew what I wanted to do since I was 7. And that was either be Madonna or be a lawyer. And so I decided, my mom was like, no, I think you should really be a lawyer. So I went that route. It's a good thing because I'm pretty good at dancing, but my knees are terrible. So I'm a mom, as my introduction points out. I'm a mom, I'm a lawyer, I'm a referee, and if you don't know what that is, it means that I do basically what a judge does. I make recommendations to the judge for the judge to kind of rubber stamp them and sign off on them. I do it for half the pay. So I'm truly a public servant. Every single day I have my own courtroom. I sit in there and I hear DHR cases. So I hear cases of child abuse and neglect. Those are cases, the worst of the worst. I sit in Bessemer, and if you don't know where that is, it's where Breaking Bad, you know that show Breaking Bad, if any of you watch that, that's Bessemer. It's based on Bessemer. So meth, anything dealing with gang activity, all that is where I sit. So every single day, I make decisions about the welfare of children. And before that, I'm essentially a recovering divorce attorney. I started litigating the moment I passed the bar. And honestly, my boss was like, hey, go handle this motion hearing. And by the way, I won that first motion hearing. It was a week after I passed the bar. Yes, it was amazing. You can clap for that. That's totally fine. So I am a huge nerd. I know that my election is not the sexy election. My election it's like the valedictorian race. Nobody really cares about it until you really need that person. And so the reason that I decided to run is I did IVF in Alabama twice. I got no embryos. I got walked out of the back of the clinic and felt like my body had completely failed me. The reason that you don't walk out the front is because they batch you. And so all of the hopefuls were sitting in the waiting room waiting to find out how many embryos they got and when they'd be able to get their child. And I got no embryos, and I got the shameful walk out the back to the elevator. So I did that twice. On the third time, I went to go see my doctor, and he said, my clinic's not big enough for you. You're going to need extra help. And he sent me to 2 doctors. So in 2020, on Thanksgiving Day, I got on a plane, and I flew to Oregon, where I did IVF for the 3rd time. I left my law practice. My law partner was holding everything down, and I had to sit out in Oregon for 10 days. And I got 3 embryos, and the first one worked. So I have a 3-year-old daughter. She is amazing. I can clap for her too. But unfortunately, she has less rights now than my grandmother did. Yeah. So I watched as I saw everything trickling down in Alabama. Our entire Supreme Court is red. And I actually had an interview for a judicial position because one of our judges unfortunately had passed away, and I went down to go interview with the governor's office and talk to them about becoming the next circuit judge in Jefferson County. And they said, what do you think about this embryo case? And I told them, I said, this is going to be very devastating to the IVF community because fetal personhood is not about saving children. The whole idea of these families trying to save children is not about that. It is about controlling women from the moment of conception. And that's what it's about, and that is the problem. So that decision was not based on protecting embryos. It wasn't based on protecting children. It was based on controlling women. And I'm just not going to stand for that. And here's the thing. Like I said earlier, I know I look young, but I started litigating immediately. I have stood with women as they went against their abusers in court. I have litigated for grandparents who are trying to get children out of abusive situations. I have sat in court on a daily basis, listening to foster parents, guardians, listening to children. I have held children when their families were erupting and they couldn't go back to their foster placement because their mother had destroyed it somehow. I've held children when their families had chosen drugs over them. I have spent decades protecting children. And that's what I plan to do. Our entire Supreme Court is red. We've got to make it look a little bit like Alabama. We need it to look like our state. little bit of blue, so it's a little bit more balanced. There's a reason that the scales of justice are scales, because it's about balance. You have to have other people's perspectives. I get it. My law partner of 11 years was a Republican. We balanced each other out. We had a great partnership. And she basically led to me taking the bench, because we did a great job for each other every day. And I feel like that's something that I could do for the bench. Now, I want to go ahead and tell y'all this, because I don't want it to come to as a shock to anybody's, younger, anybody trying to have children, anybody younger who's like, hey, I want to go and make a family, and all of a sudden IVF stops again. IVF is not protected. It's actually the law that they passed is unconstitutional. And when you ask our legislators about it, they don't even realize it. So IVF is still at risk. But here's the thing. Reproductive health care is also a huge issue in the state of Alabama. Because that IVF decision, as I said before, circulates back to reproductive health care. Did y'all know that Alabama is number 3 in maternal mortality? Yeah. Did you know that it's number 1 for black women? Did you know that 34% of our state is in a maternal health care desert? That means that people have to drive more than an hour to get to a doctor to take care of them. Since all of these extremely restrictive reproductive health care laws have been passed, the infant mortality rate has shot up. And that's because families don't get to make decisions anymore. They don't get to make decisions based on their own health care. They don't get to make decisions based on their child's health care. They have the government stepping into the exam room with them. We are turning our legislators into doctors, and most of them are not even close to being one. We've turned our doctors into lawyers, so they can't treat the patients. And I'm not okay with that. So I decided to run, and for 3 reasons. Those big reasons are, 1, I want to protect families like mine. I want people to receive adequate health care. In Alabama, we don't have enough access to health care. Number 2, I've done the work. Like I said, I know I look young, but I started litigating from the moment that I was born into a baby lawyer, and I kept on at it. And I didn't stop. I've been published, I've taught, I've gone and mentored young attorneys. I've been published in the Alabama Lawyer twice. That's a big deal for a nerd, y'all. That's a really big deal. I've also written the laws. I'm on the committee right now to write the Uniform Parentage Act for the state of Alabama. And lastly, I believe that the courts are here because we are here to keep families together, not tear them apart. Especially with what's going on with all of these families being torn apart and being sent to concentration camps. This is not okay. As a lawyer, I have a duty to protect due process. I tell people that every single day in my courtroom. In my courtroom, there's due process. I know that in the United States, they may not believe that in some places, but in Bessemer, Alabama, we do. So I really hope that you'll vote for me. My slogan is justice for y'all. Y'all means all. Any questions? Because I love to answer questions. Yes?
One thing, when you're talking about reproductive rights and all, and especially abortion rights, everybody always wants to, like we were talking about earlier, protect the fetus, but yet I think bringing up the statistic of how many children in this state are in foster care is a good thing to do when you're campaigning also, and maybe even asking people, is anybody in the room a foster parent? But yet, you're trying to control women's reproductive rights, but you aren't willing to foster one of these 5,000 foster children in just this state alone? So
it's a little ironic that you mentioned that, because there's actually a Methodist preacher who talks about how much people care about the unborn child, but how little they care once that child is born.
Sure.
And for me, I wanted nothing more than to be a mother. I put myself through 5 years of fertility treatment. I flew across the country to become a mom. But I also understand if you get a diagnosis at 20 weeks that your child's not going to make it more than 2 days, you get a diagnosis that your child is going to live maybe 2 years and die a horrible death, you should have the right to make a decision about that child.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions?
I wanted to know about your uniform parents.
So the Uniform Parentage Act, it concerns, essentially it talks about who can become parents on different things. So I do surrogacy cases. That's one of the things that, I'm one of like 3 attorneys in the state that handle surrogacy cases. So when a surrogate gives birth to a child, to intended parents, a lot of times the intended parents are the full genetic parents of that child. So we are basically drafting the statute right now, in addition to handling all other types of like paternity, maternity stuff. But we are writing in the statute how those people will be seen as the actual parents. They don't have to adopt their own child. Because a surrogate is merely carrying the baby for someone else. She's not the parent. People say surrogate mother all the time. Horrible choice of words. That's not what she is. So that's what we're working on now, is basically figuring out how to make sure that that's uniform across all of the United States.
Is this a law that you're writing to present to the legislature?
Yes. Yeah, I'm on the committee to write it. So we meet like twice a month right now. We took a break for a little while because we felt like it wasn't the right time to submit it because we were
When is the
afraid.
next session?
October.
Are you familiar with equal rights, there was several times there's been law written up to provide equal access to children to both parents, with a presumption that the judge must have a presumption of equal custody from the start rather than bias, and also is required to state why he makes a decision for one parent rather than the other. As I went through that, and the judge would never tell me why I couldn't see my son. You know, I ended up losing my son when he was 8 years old because the judge put him in a bad place. And so I've been working for that, try to get that reform, family law, especially custody reform.
There actually is a presumption right now for 50-50 custody for, or joint custody, not 50-50, joint custody.
I thought they shot that one down again.
No, there's one that's still in place that there is a presumption that you should do, not 50-50, it's not equal custody, it's joint custody, so joint decision-making authority. As far as coming into, in different custody cases, I think every situation is going to be a little different no matter what. There are times when it is right for a man to have custody, times when it's right for a woman to have custody. I have fought for both on numerous occasions. Actually, my favorite client of all time was a surgeon who had 4 kids that I absolutely adored him. It was one of the most destructive cases that I've ever had to deal with because there was a lot of money behind there. But here's the thing, is also, I think there's a huge presumption in a lot of places for women to have custody because there's not enough support for women in the workforce. There's no child care, so the women are actually leaving the workforce. They then take care of the children because they don't have the adequate resources. And not only that, a lot of times, like for me personally, I had 6 weeks of leave because I had, short-term disability, and I had my own business. So I felt like when I went back in, I ended up getting postpartum because I went back too fast. Of course, I knew how to answer the questions, so I never would have told my doctor that. And then, years later, I realized I was not in a good place. But I wasn't going to admit it. I was a strong woman. Man, I was going to take care of that kid. But I'm pumping in court and in trial, handling a custody trial, like not even 8 weeks after having my daughter. So I think that with those circumstances, I don't think that any law can fix it. I don't think it's always going to have to be dealing with every particular circumstance and finding a judge in that area that's going to listen. It's all about money and finding the best lawyer, unfortunately.
Yeah, I know all about it.
Yeah, I know.
It's a racket.
It is. It really is.
It's corrupt as hell, too.
Let me tell you, as a bleeding heart lawyer, y'all thought I was going to say liberal, didn't you? As a bleeding heart lawyer, I typically would always, my clients would owe me all the time. I'd be like, you can pay me whatever, we'll get to it. But I care. I care about people. Any other questions? I can tell you. Yeah.
I'm curious about your background, hometown education. Are you currently a circuit judge or somebody that was mentioned? So I just like to know about your background.
Yeah. So, okay, I'm a juvenile referee. So it is, I sit on the juvenile court. My judge that sits in the courtroom across from me, she is a district judge. So people call me judge, but I don't make the same amount of money, and I don't, she has to sign off on all my orders. So I make recommendations to her. So I hear all of the child support cases, so 4D, which is federal cases, people who are on Medicare, Medicaid, dealing with welfare, food stamps, that kind of stuff. Anybody who goes in for that kind of stuff, they then have to ask the parent to support them. If the state is supporting them, they require the parent to support. Even if that parent was abusive in some way, and every single time those men come in there and they're like, hey, I want joint time, or I want visitation, they may be in prison, doesn't matter. So then they open up that can of worms just so that they can get some, Medicaid for their child. So I handle those cases, and I handle the child abuse and neglect cases, which is when DHR picks up a child when there's, if somebody was sexually abusing a child or physically abusing the child, if there's drug abuse, any of that, I handle those cases when those kids are brought into care. So before that, I had my own law firm for 11 years. Then before that, I worked for a law firm in Huntsville for 2.5 years. Before that, I was at Cumberland, which is at Sanford in Birmingham. University of Alabama before that, $1 million band color guard. And then, Roll Tide.
Yeah.
And then before that, I was at Bob Jones in Madison County. So I still technically have my own firm that I do in the evenings. So I basically spend all day protecting kids and then spend the evenings making families. And then I put my daughter to sleep, and then I get back up and go in my office, and I do a little bit of making families some more. And then I watch Star Wars with my husband.
So
I'm very impressed with you.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. I'm a very ambitious person, but I also am very busy, and I like it that way. I like it a lot. I also teach dance on the weekends. Yeah.
Great.
And in order to raise money, because I don't know if you'll know this, but IVF costs about $25,000. And I actually spent around $100,000 to get my daughter. I went through 6 IUIs, which cost about $5,000 to $10,000 a piece. And then, traveling to Oregon to actually get her. Spent about $100,000, and I raised money on the weekends by doing princess parties. Because I didn't want to work extra because it added to stress, and stress is a contributing factor to infertility. So, I don't know if y'all know this, but infertility affects about 1 in 6 people. It's 1 in 6 worldwide, 1 in 8 in the U.S., 1 in 6 professional women. So, mainly doctors and lawyers and teachers are the 1 in 6 statistic. And 1 in 4 women have miscarriages. Any other questions?
So when you say you've been litigating since you got out of school, how many years have you been in the legal business?
Almost to 15.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I like
15 in September.
Yeah, so that's a good, for, again, we were talking earlier about people with short attention spans. Just hammer that in. I've been a lawyer for 15 years, just so they don't think you're some cute little girl.
Sometimes that wins people over too.
It's good to play both cards.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
I think Jim has a question.
Is your election statewide or district?
It is statewide. So tell all your friends they can vote for me. Even the Republican women, they can go in there, do a straight ticket if they feel like it. Then they can still vote for me. It does not negate their vote. They can still vote for me, no matter where they are.
Tell us what we can do to help you as the Calhoun County Democrats.
Oh, well, if you follow socials, please follow my socials. Interact the best that you can. Even if you want to be mean, that really drives things up because then people start responding. It helps with the algorithm. Guys, I'm just learning about all of this. I swear, I didn't know anything, but Mallory Hagan mentioned it at some boot camp that I went to. It was like, you want to run for office boot camp? And she said, you have to get on TikTok. And I was like, no. But I did it, and I had 30,000 views on my announcement, y'all. 30,000, that's big. Yes! It really helps. Like, the last redheaded Democrat that ran against my opponent lost by 0.4%, y'all. 0.4%. Tell all your friends. Now, there's other ways you can help, but I'm a judicial candidate, so I cannot say those ways. So if you have any questions, ask my intern, Avery. She's wonderful. She'll tell you how you can help. But please just spread the news. Everybody, get everybody out there to vote. It's a really big deal because, like I said, that 0.4%, she should have won. And the end of his ad says that he's Trump tough. We don't need that anymore. No. No. We need Mama Strong.
Who are you opponent? Who are you running?
I'm running against Greg Shaw.
Okay.
His decision on the IVF opinion was that an embryo is alive to be protected no matter the location, even if it's in a cryogenic tank.
Boo!
And by the way, I have 2 more embryos, but I'm too scared to become pregnant because the state of Alabama has made it so dangerous for me to be pregnant.
Yeah.
So my daughter is asking for a sister every single day, and I'm too scared to give her that.
Oh, wonderful. Let's go for it.